Hola, it's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for my monthly mailbag number 5. Yes, number 5. Really excited about this episode. I'm going to go ahead and tag some friends so we can get a audience going here. So if you're watching the recorded video, go ahead and feel free to go fast forward for a few minutes while I tag some friends. So let's see who we can get to join us for this live episode. So again, just tagging some friends, seeing who's out there and who can join us for this live episode. So just give me a minute here while I tag some friends. I'm just seeing who's available to join us, and then we'll get started soon here. So just seeing who's available, tagging some friends, and we'll get started soon. So just seeing who's online, and just gonna tag a few more friends here, and we'll get started soon. So let's see who else might be out there. Just a few more friends we're gonna tag, and then we'll get started soon here. So it looks like there's quite a few people who are online right now. So just want to make sure we tag those folk, let them know that we're just about ready to start this episode, and we'll get going real soon here. Just a few more friends we're going to tag here. All right. See who else is out there that we can tag and let them know that we're live. All right, just going to tag one or two more. Let's see here. All right, I think that's good. Awesome, yay, we got people joining. So I'm getting the thumbs up, so I anticipate that means that you can hear. Is that correct? First of all, shout out to my tia, my Aunt Emily. She says every Sunday, make sure you give me my shout outs. So I'm seeing the thumbs up, so I anticipate that means that you can hear me. And yes, Danny, good morning. Good morning, Legionaria, and those others that have joined us. I'm sure now that I've done all that tagging of friends that we'll have more joining. So what I'm going to do is give an introduction, and that'll give us time to let more people join and we can get a bigger audience going. So if you're watching the recorded video, feel free to go ahead and fast forward a few minutes if you've already heard my introduction, because I'm, again, going to give an introduction to give time for people to join. Can we just tag some friends and let them know that we're now live? Again, my name is Beto. I'm your daily divinity coach, and we're here for my monthly mailbag number 5. Today is Sunday, March 7th. And my monthly mailbag, I do this the first Sunday of every month. And it's an opportunity for those who, read my posts and watch my shows on social media to ask me questions, and I provide answers. These questions have been pre-submitted, so I don't take live questions. And the reason why is because I want to make sure that I think through your question and provide a thoughtful responses. So we have 11 questions that have been pre-submitted from the last monthly mailbag number 4 until now, until the 5th one, and I'll be providing thoughtful responses to these questions. So a little bit about me. I teach on 3 main subjects. Number 1 being the law of attraction, the law of abundance, being limitless. And I was tutored in the law of attraction from the time I was a young child, 10 years old, by my mother, who's really into, speaking things into existence and that type of thing, cursing negative thoughts and, all that cursing negative words. And so that was my upbringing. I did also have a father who was into faith healing and a grandfather who's into indigenous Mexican healing rituals. But it was really my mother that was there all the time, right, tutoring me and, working my brain around the law of attraction, the law of abundance, being limitless. And when I think about that, I was actually talking to one of my sons the other day, and I was talking about how some of the great boxers, because, I'm a big boxing fan, some of the great boxers like Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya, those that I got to cover because I was a fight writer. I was part of the media, the industry. And, they started when they're young, right? In athletics, in boxing. Well, I started in this stuff, right? In spirituality with my mom, right? The law of attraction. But also, my dad, but he wasn't really tutoring me in faith healing. It's just what I seen. And then my grandfather also, I seen it, but they weren't tutoring me like the way my mom was. So anyway, also I teach on liberation theology or social justice. Introduced to liberation theology in college as an undergrad, and then that was my emphasis of study when I went to divinity school, seminary, graduate school here at Harvard University Divinity School. I still live out here in Boston, originally from Atzlan, from San Francisco, but out here in Boston now. So that's number two. And then number three subject that I talk about or teach on is immortality, anti-aging, being ageless, and that was self-study. I don't have an immortality coach. It was just, I didn't go to, it wasn't a course of study at Harvard University Divinity School or in seminary around immortality or being ageless. It was just a self-study, a 10-year self-study that I underwent, talking to people, reading things on health, nutrition, looking at ancient texts, ancient wisdom, and just realized, started at that point after 10 years, I just, had the courage, right, to profess my immortality, and now I teach about it. So in addition to those two other subjects. So that's what I teach on. I post every day on social media, about a paragraph. I'm here on Facebook, but also Instagram and Twitter. And then I do these weekly shows. I'm here every Sunday morning, first Sunday of the month. Like now, I do these my monthly mailbags, but the other Sundays, I do Sunday Weekly Revival. And so I prepare original content and I deliver them. So I'm here live every Sunday on Facebook Live. And then before I come to Facebook Live, I'm actually on Instagram Live. So I do my live shows on both Facebook and Instagram. And then the other thing I do is I provide these bracelets. They're rubber bracelets. There's a black one that reads Manifest Immortality, a blue one that reads Manifest Abundance, and a gray one that reads, the blue one reads Manifest Abundance, and the gray one reads Manifest Justice. So it's a set of three, and I provide these for free. I produce them myself. So if you haven't received your set of bracelets and you'd like some, please let me know. You can IM me, DM me, text me if you have my phone number. You can go to my website, dailydivinitycoach.com. There's an order form there, and I'd love to send you out a set of bracelets. It's free shipping always in the U.S. till the end of March. Free shipping in Europe, throughout Europe or North America. I also, if you have a need and you'd like me to pray for you, you can send me an IM, DM, text, or pull down a form on my website for free scientific prayer. My mom is my prayer partner, so we take people's requests, and people sent in requests, and we pray, and miracles have happened. And she's awesome at visualization and prayer and whatnot. So she's been doing it for decades now, decades and decades. So anyhow, so that's what we do. And then also, if you want divinity coaching, free 45 minutes, reach out. We'll set up a time to talk. If you have questions about any content of my shows or my monthly mailbags or my posts or just anything you want to talk about, 45 minutes, happy to set up a time. People have done it, and it's been beneficial for them as well as for me. So I'm happy to do that as well. So now the show. So I wanted to start out with my monthly mailbag number 5 by recognizing that today is the 56th year commemoration of Bloody Sunday. What was Bloody Sunday? Well, this day, March 7th, back in 1965, the late John Lewis, the U.S. congressperson, the civil rights activist, he passed away this past summer during COVID. He passed away. I don't think it was from COVID, but he passed away. And anyway, this day, March 7th, 1965, John Lewis and other civil rights leaders led a march in Alabama from Selma to Montgomery, but during their march, and it was for voting rights, very righteous, right? It was a righteous march about for voting rights. Well, while crossing the anyway, they're crossing this bridge going to Montgomery, right, the state capitol. And on this bridge, these peaceful demonstrators were brutalized by the police. And John Lewis himself had his skull cracked by state troopers, and that's why they call it Bloody Sunday. So today is the 56-year commemoration of that. So I wanted to recognize Bloody Sunday, the commemoration of Bloody Sunday, as well as John Lewis, who passed away this past summer. So I'm on to the questions. So question number one, this came in. Beto, how has your family fared during COVID? Very thoughtful and considerate question. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sending this one in. My family's, for the most part, done well during COVID, thankfully. And I know, a lot of families have suffered losses, and people have shared that with me during COVID, and others have had family members or themselves have been hospitalized, and some even with chronic conditions that are lingering because of COVID. And I really feel for them, and some have even asked for prayer, and I, done that. But for the most part, my family, and I say for the most part because of this, we've done well, is because my father did have a cardiac arrest during COVID this winter, not long ago. And I think I shared this on one of my episodes. So he went into cardiac arrest, and but thankfully he was in a place, doctor's office or hospital, where there's specialists, and they were able to resuscitate him. They revived him after 2 minutes. And so anyhow, my mom and I prayed, and which is what we do, our custom. And so after that, they did all kinds of checks, tests and stuff, and couldn't find anything wrong with them. Then afterwards, he made a couple appointments to see specialists. They ran tests and stuff, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. They said his heart's fine. So thankfully he's fine. But he did suffer that, and obviously that was it happened. But otherwise, I've been fine. I haven't had any ill effects around COVID. My two sons, my oldest one's been fine. He's actually be graduating law school in a couple months. In May, he's out in San Francisco. My youngest one, who's here with me in Boston, he's been fine. He's actually supposed to start rugby. He plays rugby. He's in high school, like I did when I was in high school. And he's good too. But yeah, I was just talking with this coach the other day, and they're supposed to start pretty soon. So yeah, so the family's been good, but thank you so much for the question. Next question. Beto, what is the sacred four-directional migration that you speak of? Okay, so the indigenous people, the Native Americans, the Hopi, right? The Hopi were instructed that every clan of the Hopi were to make these four-directional migrations. So 4 directions meaning east, west, north, and south. And they were not to set up permanent home until they completed these migrations. So they didn't all go in one direction, right? Some clans started east, some clans started west, some started north, some started south. So these migrations, what they were was they're supposed to walk until land met sea. So for example, if they're going to the east, right, they'd end up on the eastern seaboard. So maybe they'd end up in Boston or New York City, or somewhere in the coast of South Carolina, but they end up out here. And then they're supposed to go west, right? And then go the other way, and maybe they end up where my firstborn is, where I grew up in San Francisco, or maybe they end up in LA or maybe Seattle. But they're supposed to go west, and they're supposed to go north, right, past Canada up to where the land met sea, down south. And here's where the question is: when they went down south, did they stop in Panama, or did they go all the way through South America? But either way, they're instructed to make these the four directional migrations, right? These sacred migrations, and not to settle until they completed them. And when they're completed, they're supposed to, these four directional migrations make a cross, right? And so they're supposed to settle, where the center of the cross would be, which is what is today the Southwest United States. So that's the fourth directional sacred migration. Interestingly enough, the Hopi believe that the Maya, right, the Toltec, the Mexica, otherwise known as the Aztecs, that they're actually Hopi clans who failed to complete the fourfold migrations, or the four directional migrations. And another question came in regards to that, so I'll address that in a minute. But that's what the four directional sacred migrations are all about. Next question. Beto, what was the last movie you watched? I love this question. So many of us are home, right? Nowadays, trying to, be protective and whatnot during this pandemic. So last movie I saw was just a couple days ago, Coming to America. It's the sequel to the original Coming to America, T.O., which starred Eddie Murphy, right? The comedian Eddie Murphy, an actor, and the co-stars Arsenio Hall. Well, they did a sequel, Coming to America, which was released 3 days ago on Amazon Prime. And it was awesome. I love the original, and the sequel was awesome too. So I saw that on Amazon Prime within the last 3 days because it was released 3 days ago. I heard about it from a colleague, and so I checked it out, and it was a lot of fun. So that was the last movie I watched. Next question, and this ties to question number 2. Beto, you say you are from Aztlan. What is Aztlan? Where is it? Okay, so for decades, Chicano activists have been saying that we're descendants of the Mexica, otherwise known as the Aztecs, or in some cases the Maya or the Toltec, and that because of this, that the Southwest U.S. is our ancestral land. Aztlan is in the Southwest U.S., and we've now completed our families, generate, like my grandparents, right, completed the sacred four-directional migration, right, that the Hopi talk about, and we're back home. We're in Aztlan now, our ancestral homeland. And so we've been saying this for decades because it's part of our oral history, right? And some, like myself, have been blessed enough to study. We learned our oral history directly from the Mexica. When I was in college and university, Mexica instructors like El Maestro Andres Segura would come up and, he'd teach us, right? And so we knew our oral history, and so we said, yeah, we're from Aztlan. This is our ancestral homeland. But many, right, especially the rulers of the fourth rule, the lords of scarcity, have tried to discredit this. And the way they do it is by saying that it's a myth, right? Beto, it's a myth. It's not. It's not truth or whatnot. It is truth, okay? And we know it's truth because of our oral history, but now it's actually been academically proven as well. So what took place is from 2002 to 2007, for 5 years, a group, 15 scholars, 15 of the top scholars of Mesoamerican history and archaeology and astronomy were gathered. And this group of 15 scholars was actually led by a scholar from Harvard University, right? One of the top universities in the world, right? Arguably the top university here in the United States of America. And the person who led this team of 15 scholars was my divinity school advisor at Harvard University Divinity School, who's also an expert in Mesoamerican studies. He teaches in both, which is David Carrasco. The team also consisted of Anthony Avini, top Mesoamerican scholar. He actually helped start a field called Mesoamerican Archaeoastronomy. He's a retired professor from Colgate University. So these top scholars for 15 years got together and, not every day, but got together over 5 years. And they studied forgive me, I'm not fluent in Nahuatl, but the Kuatinchan. If David Carrasco, he watches my shows. If he's watching, he's probably laughing right now. But the Kuatinchan 2 map. It's this map. And through their study of this map, these 15 scholars for 5 years substantiated what we knew all along, right? What Chicano activists knew all along. And that's that the Mexica originated from Aztlan, like they said they did, which was to the north of modern-day Mexico and what is now the southwest United States. So that's why I say I'm from Aztlan. I do qualify because a lot of people don't know about Aztlan, and that's why I say I'm from Aztlan. I'm from San Francisco. But so there you go. That's Aztlan. That's Aztlan and where it is. So next question, Beto. Where does your inspiration come from? I love this question because a lot of people assume that my inspiration comes from like Anthony Robbins or this other person that they speak of who honestly I've never read any of her material or seen her shows or anything, but Abraham Hicks, and a plethora of spiritual leaders and motivational speakers and whatnot. And not that I don't recognize them, and I think they're doing great things, but that's not where my inspiration comes from. To be honest, if I can be honest, I mean, it's my monthly mailbag, right? To be honest, I think a lot of what's out there in the world, around those motivational speakers and those kind of spiritualists is not bad. I think it really helps people, but it's really about coping, in some cases survival, but really about coping with the fifth world reality, right? Fourth world reality. And a lot of the, just the realities, right? Which we know are untruths. So I'm about the fifth world, right? And so, so I'm about thinking differently. And so in that case, I really end up drawing my inspiration from the artists, right? Because the artists think differently, right? So for example, I did a show last week for Sunday Weekly Revival on visual artists, Jean-Michel Basquiat and Mr. Cartoon. And that's where, when I'm really looking for inspiration, I go there, right? I also go to musical artists, right? Like Bob Marley, Lauryn Hill. I look at the on-screen artists, like Oprah Winfrey and Desi Arnaz. I look at athletes who've looked at the world differently, right? Like Muhammad Ali, the poets, writers, right? Like the literary icon Toni Morrison looked at the world differently. So these are the people I go to for inspiration. Those I would call artists, because I think of myself too as an artist. I think of myself as a spiritual thought artist. So great question. I love the question, thinking about it, meditating on it. Thank you so much. That's a good question too. Beto, why do you prefer the label spiritual misfits? Okay, so it's fun. No, really. There's different labels for, like the target audience that I speak to. For example, literary icon Toni Morrison talks about those pressed to the margins, right? Those pressed to the margins. The Hopi, I talked earlier about the Hopi. The Hopi talk about the humble. The great teacher talks about the meek, which is really another way to talk about the righteous. I did an episode recently on the UFW, Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, and how they're fighting for the rights of farm workers, right? The least of these, that was righteous, right? But I like the word spiritual misfits, or the label, and the reason why is because we don't fit into the fourth world, right? We don't look at the world the way other people do, right? We just don't fit into religious establishments that are, rooted in the fourth world. And we aren't intimidated by the rulers of the fourth world, right? We don't bow down to the Lord of scarcity. We'd rather champion the least of these, right? We'd rather, whether it's farm workers or the poor, right? The oppressed, we'd rather champion the least of these than, be caught up in whatever the lords of scarcity are perpetrating these days. We also reject fourth world hypermaterialism. So we're not out for fourth world status. It doesn't excite us. It doesn't motivate us, right? We're about unity and liberation, right? Not division, because that's what the rulers of scarcity, the fourth world rulers do. They conquer and they divide, right? They're about division, causing divisions. I talked about Snoop Dogg and the 92 riots recently, and he talked about how Chicanos and African Americans, started communicating together, right? Like family members during that time, right? And traumatic time for so many people. There's deaths and injuries and destruction, but this positive thing came about at that time, and that continues today. We also spiritual misfits, right? We know that death and aging are untruths, right? We talk about immortality. We talk about being ageless, right? That doesn't fit into fourth world reality because, the rulers of the fourth world, they're about scarcity. That's how they keep their power. That's how they maintain their power. We're not about that. We're about liberation. We're about being limitless. We're about flipping the currency, right? From man-made currency, right? You see these pictures of mostly men, some women, on the currency that folk use, right? We're about flipping that to eternal time, right? About manifesting agelessness and immortality. So anyhow, that's why I prefer the label spiritual misfits. Going on. So this is a fun question. This person, and just this question just came in a couple days ago. This person asked, Beto, I can't wait for Oprah Winfrey to interview you. When do you think that might happen? I would love that, hopefully soon. Yeah, it would be awesome, right? It'd be awesome to sit down with Oprah Winfrey or walk around, whatever she wants to do, and have a conversation with Oprah Winfrey, do an interview. When do I think it could happen? Hopefully soon. I don't know if or when. I leave that up to the divine, the how and the when. It would be awesome, though. I really appreciate this. It brought a huge smile to my face when I read it. This person obviously really believes in me and all in spirituality. So yeah, hopefully soon. Question number 8. Beto, what is all in spirituality and how did the phrase originate? Okay, so how it originated is that I was looking for a phrase to really encapsulate everything I talk about. So, the liberation theology, social justice piece, as well as the law of attraction, manifesting abundance piece, being limitless. And then also the immortality, right? Being ageless, the anti-aging piece. So I was looking for something that would encapsulate all of that. And so I came up with all in spirituality, right? So all in being, you're all in, right? I know the poker players use it. But, it's also a phrase everyday people use, just talk about being 100% dedicated, right? We're all into this project or, to reaching this goal or whatnot. So that's how it originated, being all in, right? To ushering in the fifth world, all in, dedicated to that. But also all as in ALL as an acronym. So A for ageless, L for liberated, and L for limitless, ALL. So that's how it originated. Great question. I appreciated that one. That was fun. So this person asked, Beto, why do you always wear black? This is a great question. So here's the reason why I always wear black. So if you go back to my early episodes, I think the first couple episodes I was wearing, I'd wear a black polo. And so my Thea Malou, who's, shout out to Thea Malou, she watches every episode, very faithful, and I appreciate her immensely. She, one episode, I can't remember which one it was, but it was very early on. She called and said, Mijo, my son, she says, your mother and I were talking, and we decided that black is your color. So every Sunday, wear black. And so because, I'm, for the most part, a good son, and I listen and I respect my Thea, my aunt, and my mom, that's why I always wear black. So who knows, maybe down the road I'll start wearing a black, sport coat or something. But yeah, so that's the reason why. There's actually a reason behind it. And I know people have asked, why don't you wear this? Why don't you wear that? Well, talk to my Thea and my mom and see if you can convince them. And if you can, then, I'll get the call and they'll say, wear this color or do this or do that. And but anyhow, that's why I always wear black. Okay, yeah, it's a good question too. So Beto, when will you begin shipping your all new, all in bracelets? So I made an announcement recently I'm actually producing right now a second set of bracelets, rubber bracelets. And these are going to be fun. There's going to be one that says ageless, one that says liberated, and one that says limitless, right? So all in, ALL, ageless, liberated, limitless. So they're going to be coming out soon. We just finalized the colors. They're going to be statement colors. You're going to love them. We just finalized the colors. It's going to be free, right? Free shipping in the U.S. always. So I think it'll be done probably in about a few weeks. I'll have them and be able to start shipping them. So stay tuned. You're going to love them. Ageless, liberated, limitless, all in spirituality bracelets with statement colors. So this is actually the last question number 11. Beto, what are your ideas for upcoming Sunday weekly revival shows? So I think I'm like at episode 35 now, but anyhow, I have been thinking about future episodes. So, but I appreciate this question because it really gave me an opportunity to put these dots together. So I plan to do one soon. This is month of March, right? So it's Women's History Month. So I plan to do one on Maya Angelou and the Battle of the Sexes. If you don't know the Battle of the Sexes, or remember, it was a tennis match between Billie Jean King, right? One of the top, if not the top, players at that time in women's tennis, and Bobby Riggs. And I believe Bobby had been a professional tennis player, but he wasn't at that time. I think he had kind of been retired, or I'm not sure, maybe he was playing on the senior circuit. But anyhow, Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King had this tennis match, and they called it the Battle of the Sexes because of the, man playing a woman and whatnot. So anyhow, I'm thinking about doing an episode on that for Women's History Month, Maya Angelou and Battle of the Sexes. Battle of the Sexes is important because women leading up to that match were not getting paid the same as men in tennis, the big tournaments and stuff, and that helped change that. So that's one episode I'm thinking of. Might also do another one in March with Selma Hayek and Eva Longoria, the actresses, Selma Hayek and Eva Longoria. I think that would be a fun episode to do and insightful. I'd also like to do an episode or a few more episodes on more comedians. I'm inspired by the artists, right? So I'm thinking about doing one on Dave Chappelle and Mr. Miyagi, right? The character in the Karate Kid movies played a powerful role. I was actually nominated for an Academy Award as Mr. Miyagi. So thinking about doing one on that. Also, I'd like to do something on Nelson Mandela, possibly put Nelson Mandela in an episode together with the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. Also want to do something Brazilian on Paulo Freire. He's intellectual, Brazilian intellectual. If you read a lot, Pedagogy of the Oppressed would be a title that you would recognize. So Paulo, and put him in conversation with the 1970 World Cup in Mexico when the Brazilians won their third World Cup, set a record. Pele was on the team. So thinking about doing that as an episode. Also, it's hard not to do one on Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, right? So I'll probably do something, episode on King and X. I'd like to do an episode on Steve Jobs. Still trying to figure out who to put Steve Jobs in conversation with. Had a thought about maybe Steve Jobs and a motivational speaker or motivational speakers. I think that could be fun. Want to do something on the Chicago 7, right? That what took place there at the Democratic convention in Chicago back in the day. The Black Panthers were also part of that. Students from Democratic Society. A lot there, right? A lot of content there. Put them in conversation with the Brown Berets, right? Out in California in the Southwest. I think that would be a good episode. Cornel West, the public intellectual Cornel West, who's also my advisor at Harvard University Divinity School. I'd love to put him. He also worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, and he's a contributor on CNN. Every now and then I have the TV on and he pops up. He's on these different, always contributing and out there in the public. Anyway, love to put Cornel West in conversation with pop art or pop artists. That whole movement with Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein, that whole pop art movement. I think that would be awesome. I am going to do one for sure. It's going to be entitled "Taking It to the Streets." Remember I think it was Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers, "Taking It to the Streets," that song. So it'll be called "Taking It to the Streets: The Roots of All in Spirituality." So I'll talk more about the history, my history of how I got to where I am in regards to spirituality, or all in spirituality. Also, May is coming up soon, so I want to do something on Cinco de Mayo. So thinking about doing one on Cinco de Mayo and the Haitian Revolution. I think that would be very powerful. Probably dedicate that one to my two sons again. My youngest son, or my second born, his mother is from Haiti, and I'm Chicano, so that Cinco de Mayo, Haitian Revolution, I think that would be very powerful for everybody, and probably dedicate that to them. Another one, because I already dedicated one to them. Thinking about doing an episode on the military-industrial complex and putting it in conversation with the medical-industrial complex. So the military-industrial complex and the medical-industrial complex, I think that could be a powerful episode. I want to do one on the singer Joni Mitchell, right? I talked about Joni Mitchell in the past, about Stardust. She sang about Stardust, which is an important concept to all in spirituality. Love to put her in conversation with Vinnie Paz. I've talked about Vinnie Paz in the past, but I'd like to dedicate a whole episode to those two, because very important to all in spirituality. Want to do something on the Zapatistas, right, down in Mexico. Maybe put them in conversation with the Chich Marin, right, the comedian and actor and art collector, Chich Marin. Probably, I talk a lot about Prince, the musical artist. I'd like to do a whole episode on Prince and reverse birthdays, so that's another idea I have. And then the last idea I have is an episode entitled "The Great Race: The Silicon Valley Billionaires versus the Spiritual Misfits." All right, this great race to manifest immortality. So I think if you add all those up, it gets us to about 50, and that'd take us to about 50 episodes. But anyhow, I really appreciate all the questions that were submitted today. It was fun. My monthly mailbag was fun. It was a blast. I call it the episode, my monthly mailbag, the Sunday where we turn the corner and great things happen. And I feel like a lot of great things are going to happen for you all, and for this work. So I really appreciate you. I'm immensely grateful for you, those of you tuning in live, as well as those who are watching the recorded video, and those who share. Right, who share these videos with your friends and family. Very, very grateful. And I'm going to go ahead and put on my reading glasses now and turn off this show. So I hope you have a blessed rest of your day or evening, wherever you're at. And hope you can tune in again next week. I'm here every Sunday live on Facebook Live, starting at 8:35 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 11:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye now.